This was the picture when he confessed to killing my mother. He is a monster who took his grandmother's life. Her vulnerability was him. And now her life is gone. Where he's going to go, straight to hell. No doubt about it. I didn't just lose my mom, but I lost a son over nothing. He's never said, well, I didn't mean for this to happen. It just makes me wonder what really happened. I'm interested to see what he has to say about the night when I clearly asked repeatedly what happened. And I begged him to tell the truth.
Will he tell me the truth?
That's a good question.
He killed our grandmother. He doesn't really show any remorse for it. He doesn't feel sympathy for the person he did it to either. He's not talked about the crime whatsoever. He's never mentioned it once. I want to know, like, why he did it.
Honestly, she didn't even see it coming. As soon as I came through the doorway, I just shot her. I remember watching her body just kind of jerk a little bit. That was me being heartless, me just not caring, me being emotionless. The last thing she saw was she was watching some show like this. Like, she was real big into true crime. And it was strange. It's like, I'm watching this show growing up with you. I don't mean to sound rude or nothing or unemotional when I say this, but I could put you on the show. That may be just how my brain works. Truly, at the end of the day, I may be cold-blooded.
This is a picture of Josh when he was just a few months old. I'll never forget that I had this cute little bundle of joy as a single parent. I can remember thinking about, what is he going to be when he grows up? Is he going to go into business? Is he going to become a doctor or a lawyer? Whatever would make him happy in life. I never once thought that I would be sitting here looking at a baby picture of my son and thinking that he's here in prison for murder. All the things you could have been doing, and instead you're in prison for the rest of your life, and a life is gone. It's an absolute waste. When my mother and I had discussed me getting him back after I had gotten out of prison, she was like, well, get yourself together, get your car, get you a nice place, and then I would take over. But to be honest, at the time I was like, well, he has the best of everything. He has my mom, he has my dad. I had a wonderful support system. So I just let it be after a while. The days that I had off from work, I would pick him up. I got him for the whole summers. I never missed sports activities, school activities. We were a little above the average income families. You say you want a pair of designer shoes, well, you do what Grandma says and you get those designer shoes. Any sport he wanted to play, whatever activity, it didn't matter. You know, we were able to provide it. Josh was highly attached to her. He was very respectful, very smart. He was actually an even-keeled kid. Thinking back on things, I'm like, where did I go wrong? Where did my mom go wrong? What happened? And I felt guilty for the crimes that I did and not being there. I remember one day I received a phone call from my dad stating that my grandfather's necklace was missing and that Josh was being accused of it. I get there and my dad immediately says, well, yeah, we found it in his belongings. I just looked at him like, Josh, why would you even think to do this? You know, as much as we love you and do for you, and this is the treatment that we get. What was the reasoning? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I got vague responses. And that was all I got. I made him apologize. I made him write a letter. I put him on punishment, and there wasn't going to be no going out, no friends coming over. At that time, my train of thought with that situation, with the stealing of the necklace, maybe it's just a one-off. He was raised to know right from wrong, and he just absolutely refuses to do the right thing. In that instance, the only thing that was going through my mind was, I can't trust him. You know, is he going to get any better? Is this going to escalate? Josh was around 14 or 15. He didn't have any license and he didn't have his driver's permit. I was furious.
What were you thinking?
I said, we're giving you the best of everything and you're constantly getting into trouble. And like I said, there wasn't too many answers I was getting. I just did not understand why, you know, what is going on. You've gone from petty stealing to taking vehicles. That's car theft.
You're gonna throw your whole life away.
He started associating with a much rougher crowd, the ones that were getting kicked out of school, breaking and entering, stealing vehicles. I told my mother, I don't know what else to do, Mom. He's escalating.
This is a prepaid call from an inmate at Birdie Correctional Institution. This call will be monitored and recorded.
How do you get to the point where you commit this horrible crime against your grandmother?
Yeah, I went out there, no thoughts, no nothing, just autopilot. Walk outside, got the gun, and walk back in. You know, I turned into the living room, and she was just literally sitting right there on the couch. And I kind of just pulled out the gun and just shot her in the head 3 times.
I can remember when this picture was taken. It's when his little brother was born. There's a 13-year gap in my kid's age. Kevin's and Josh's bond was strong. I can remember him changing diapers, giving him baths, and playing with him. One throws it away and the other does so many wonderful things with his opportunity. Like, where did I go wrong? That's how I feel when I see pictures of them younger and like, where did I go wrong with this one? This one's doing so well, but this one, that's like my bad apple.
This is younger Josh. 2 sides of a coin right there. Got the cool, calm, collected side, and then you've got the other side of the coin. He's got all these other temptations trying to get to him, and he let them succeed, unfortunately. You know, taking credit cards, taking some money. Always got in trouble. You know who came to the rescue? Grandma. What I saw first was the pain that he brought to my mom and my grandma. I mean, when I saw the damage he had done, that's when I started to understand. I started associating with, hey, mom and grandma are crying. What did Josh do? You have someone who just, I don't know, wants to commit crime and do horrible things.
I am talking to Josh. I told him that, have you not stopped to think that this girl could have died? That would have been on your hands. What did you even give her? I don't know. I can remember specifically asking, what the hell is wrong with you? Why? I'm not understanding. I have no idea what he was thinking when he'd done what he did. And I told him eventually somebody's life is going to be lost before this is all said and done. Do you not want to change? And he said, well, yeah, I want a career. I want this. I said, well, you're killing your chances to have something. I said, because who's going to hire a felon? You go from petty thieving to basically stealing cars, somebody overdosing. Something's going to happen, and there's going to be consequences. My mother finally had to call the police on Josh. He tried to pawn her TVs, her jewelry, and a few other things. I distinctly remember telling him, that this is not acceptable. You're out of control. What is going on? What do we need to do to help? And I don't know, Mom. And that's basically all I was really getting. I wanted him to go to jail because he needed to be put in juvenile hall to see this is what really happens. This is not playtime. Josh was on a house arrest for this incident with an ankle monitor on. He never changed. He never stopped. There were instances where he got house arrest multiple times. Or if he even went to jail, he would be there for short periods of time, but he would be right back there. My husband made a comment about how somebody's life is going to get hurt from all the things that he's getting into. He said it could be you, it could be Kevin, it could be your mom.
Well, if you were to get out of prison tomorrow, would you have the capability to kill again?
Honestly, I believe everybody has the capability to kill again, but I feel that I have the mental capability and capacity to actually do it. You know what I'm saying? Because, like they say, once you've done it once, you can do it again.
I see the emptiness, just despair. I can remember thinking to myself that maybe I let him down by not stepping up to the plate and taking my child from my mom and my dad. But then as I got to thinking, he's older now. He can make life decisions. I'm still helping you. I'm still there. I can remember thinking, you can come to us at any time and we will help. Why won't you just come to us and let us help you? But he never asked. He just took it upon himself and just did and did, even though it was wrong. You don't even know if you can forgive or forget what happened. Are you still going to care for them? Are they going to come out and do the right thing? Are they even going to come out? I'm honestly and thinking to myself, he might die in there. I truly believe that my mom put him first in everything. And she provided to the best of her ability, and he never wanted for nothing. Josh didn't just take advantage of my mom for all of these years. He took advantage of all of us. So I get a phone call. Josh asked me, Mom, it's really important, I need to borrow some money. And I said, well, can you wait till Thursday? Well, I really don't think I can. I need it as quick as possible. I said, well, I won't have it until Thursday. So, and that was it. And he said, well, it's okay. I'll go ask Granny. My phone is ringing and ringing and ringing. And it is my mother's pastor. And he said, I need to tell you something. Your mama didn't go to church Sunday, and that's not like her. And then he just gets very quiet. They found your mom dead. She had been in the house for a few days. I just remember standing there with the phone going, huh? What do you mean? And I'm just standing there holding the phone, looking at it. And then my cell phone starts ringing. And it's my uncle and aunt calling. And I can remember my aunt telling me it was foul play, being told that she had been shot. And I'm just sitting there crying, not knowing what to do. I was just totally dumbfounded. I cried for multiple days, got physically, violently sick. I can still remember having to pick up my mom's casket, having to make all these arrangements. My mom had to have a closed casket. I'm visiting him in jail, and I'm trying to understand what happened. Josh, I remember asking, what happened? Did you kill Mom?
And he never really had an answer?
No. To this very day, I still haven't gotten an answer. He just tells me that they argued. It wasn't until after Josh confessed that I told Kevin.
I had just found out Josh had been arrested. I still hadn't known how my grandma was killed. It was just a sad, eerie moment. It was awful. It surprised me. I definitely think that was a step I didn't think he would reach. I knew he was really bad into the things he was doing, you know, robbing and stealing, but I didn't think he was capable of killing someone. He's just evil. No remorse, stone cold killer. I want to understand what made him do the things that he does. There could have been something that I don't know about because I'm younger, and I might find something else from his answers that I didn't know at the time. I would love to figure out, like, what makes you think this way? What makes you do the things that you do? Why do you do them?
I would go and visit, and I would talk to him and ask him questions. Why is she dead? Did you go by yourself, Josh? I can remember thinking to myself that, yeah, he pulled the trigger.
Has he ever admitted that to you?
No. He was like, well, I was just so high. I'd been high for X amount of days. I've been an addict, but I have never been high or drunk enough that I would want to kill somebody. What was he thinking? Just what really happened? I just want hard facts that you've done it. I think the last thing my mom saw was a gun being pulled on her. Did she stand up? You know, did she even know he was there? I'd rather hear the truth than a lie.
I am convicted of the crime of killing my grandmother by the means of shooting her in the head multiple times. This is a chance for me to explain to my family on how this crime came to be. I don't even believe I told my lawyer the true story. I don't know how to express it. Like, how do I sit there and say, Mom, I'm sorry. Kevin, I'm sorry. How do I do that? I don't know how. This is my chance to do it. And I'm doing it the best way I can. And this is about the only way I know how to do it. So I went to my grandmother's house, asked her for a couple dollars. Like, she doesn't mind helping me out. So I figured, you know, I could shoot her a little bit of bull. Sorry, excuse the language, but shoot her a lie here or there and be like, hey, Granny, you know, I need a couple dollars for whatever reason. And hoping she would just give it to me. You know, I go in there and I actually sit down and talk for a little bit. You know, we just talking, watching a little TV. Now, I was already high on methamphetamines. I was by myself. And I'm like, hey, Granny, I'm kind of have a little situation. I need a couple dollars. Can you help me out? And right then, it was kind of just going in on me. Why do you need help? What do you need it for? You know, you stole, you did this, you did that. And I felt like it was a verbal attack towards me. I went outside, grabbed the gun, walked right inside and just shot her 3 times.
So what did you do after the shooting?
I left, went and got high. Like, I left the house, kind of tried to level myself out just a little bit. And I'm like, damn, hold on, I really just killed my grandmother. Well, I might as well go rob her now. Kill, grab, go.
What was going through your mind? I mean,
Defend myself. I need to go ahead and get you before you get me.
but how is it that you felt you needed to defend yourself? She's sitting on her couch, she's watching TV, she doesn't have a gun in her hand.
That's how I just felt. Like, I really just felt like that. More or less, that was me being heartless. Me just not caring, me being emotionless, me just thinking about me being selfish. That's really what it was. Honestly, she didn't even see it coming. Because the way she was sitting in the couch, there's a side doorway from the kitchen into the living area, and that's where I shot from. Like, literally, as soon as I came through the doorway, I just shot her. I remember watching her body just kind of jerk a little bit. Like, it wasn't no hitting you and then she just fall over. Like, she literally was still sitting in the upright position, but her body just kind of jerked a little bit. After I killed her, I left. Like, I literally left the house.
How much money were you asking or intending to ask her for that night?
Probably about $300-400.
But wasn't your grandmother's life worth more than a couple $100?
It really was. It really is.
What was the last thing that your grandmother saw before she died? Did she even look at you?
She didn't even see it. She didn't. The last thing she saw was, matter of fact, she was watching a show on the ID channel, I believe. Or she was watching some show like this. Like, she was real big into true crime. Like, she was really, real big into it. And it was strange. It's like, I'm watching this show growing up with you, and now you're on the show. I don't mean to sound rude or nothing or unemotional when I say this, but I could put you on the show. You know what I mean? I can make a show of you. Really.
I want to talk about stealing. That was a big part of your
yeah.
life. And I looked up your criminal filings.
Big thief.
52 criminal filings on your record dating back to 2009.
All thefts. The majority of them. Probably all of them. Oh man, stuff I stole from my grandmother. Because like I say, she was very successful, so she had materialistic items. You know, I pop up, hey Granny, can you buy me this? No. So it just made me, once I learned I could just take stuff, why would I not? he continued to do it. I'm talking about I stole checks, and I'm not talking about little checks. I'm talking about $500, $600 checks at a time, back to back to back.
I mean, did you see your grandmother as someone that you could just use and take from to serve your own needs?
At one point, yes. And I did because she had it. Like, you have all this stuff, and I want it. Like, I want to be where you're at, but you're not helping me get there. Once I learned I could just take and the consequences weren't that bad, why not just keep on doing it?
Well, I mean, the consequences are there's a victim on the other end.
And that's me being, what's the word? Heartless, more or less to say. And I really hate to say it like that, but I was heartless. I didn't care.
Do you have any remorse for all the thefts and break-ins that you've done?
I do now, but back then, no. And that's me being directly honest with you. I feel that growing up, if I would have had the opportunity to experience life as a child, it may have shaped my future in a different path. Like, my life was crumbling. I mean, because, like, my mom is really, at this point, my mom is my best friend. I didn't want her to feel like she abandoned me. And that's really how I felt back then. You know, and I understand things were out of her control, but that's how I really felt. Like, I remember she was arrested. I went through my grandmother. Like, and I feel that it wasn't out of love, more of an obligation. Like, this is my daughter's son. Let me take care of him. I felt the love to some degree, but the problem was it was always tough love. There was never no hugs, no kisses. So whenever it got to the point when I became an adult, or when I got of an age where I could just step out when I wanted to, it was like freedom, like, hold on, I can just do this. I would just go as far as I could because I'd never done it before.
How are you feeling about watching Joshua's interview clips today?
I don't know. I'm kind of, oh my God, what am I going to hear? What am I going to see? I'm just in that, I don't know, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do?
Are you hoping it might bring you some closure?
Yes,
I could have been there that night. What if I was there? What would have happened to me? You're gonna tell me if I, screamed or you came running up the stairs and you see me that you wouldn't have done the same? You put 3 in Grandma, how about you just empty the clip, It's... That's what my brother would think.
What do you remember about being a 7-year-old and your mom telling you that she was being sent to prison?
Like, my life was crumbling. I mean, because, like, my mom is really, at this point, my mom is my best friend. She's the person now that I'm older, I'm an adult. I feel I can talk to her about things that I couldn't talk to her back then. Because I didn't want her to feel like she abandoned me. And that's really how I felt back then.
figured he knew.
He got emotional there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was true emotion from him?
That's a little hard because I've never not been out of the picture, per se, except for the prison time. So it just, I'm a little iffy about it because I was always there. I can empathize with the little boy, but as a grown man, all he had to do was just open his mouth.
sat down and I'm like, hey, Granny, I'm kind of having a little situation. I need a couple dollars. Can you help me out? And right then it was kind of just going in on me. Why do you need help? What do you need it for? Now, I was already high on methamphetamines. Went outside, grabbed the gun, walked right inside and just shot her 3 times. And I'm saying this in a heartless way, but that's how it happened.
It's the truth. He finally spoke the truth about himself. I offered him the money, and he said, I really can't wait. I kind of need it as soon as possible. He said, no problem, Mom.
There really was no point. Like after I came down from being high, I was like, all she did was just get on to me a little bit. Like that's all she was doing, was just getting on to me.
So basically she started on you and it annoyed you, so you shot her.
Yeah, pretty much. The basics, yes. I'm not gonna say she had it coming to her. More or less that was me being heartless. Me just not caring, me being emotionless, me just thinking about me being selfish. That's really what it was.
Just why? He knows how Mom is. He knows, did it just hurt his feelings? Just that bad to be told, no, I'm not gonna give it to you, and you just reacted. And like we said, it was the emotional side. It just came out. So.
Does it give you any closure to have him admit that he was heartless and selfish?
Yes. To hear him say that he was heartless and selfish, I've given him the same opportunity that I gave his younger brother. And he still made the choices.
Kevin wants to know, would you have killed him if he was there that night to cover your tracks? Because he remembers being at Grandma's house about a week prior to that. So he could have possibly have been there that night.
I wouldn't have. Like, I really love my brother. Like, I really love my grandmother. But it was just, I look at certain family members differently. Like, I feel compassion and love for my brother. I wanted to be there for him, but I just wasn't. Like, I really felt like I could have been a better brother towards him. I really could have done more for him. Just been there, but I wasn't.
I don't think he thought that answer through before he answered that one. So he said he was on meth, so, that's one of those that clouds his judgment, makes him a little bit crazier. He says he wouldn't have, but, I mean, no one just goes and kills their grandma. No one willingly has the chance to leave, to recuperate from the whole situation. Just go home, not even think about it. He comes back in the house. Doesn't even, because I know how that house is. He probably just aimed it through the doorway like that. He didn't even look at her. Didn't even have the heart to. These videos are eye-opening. I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to do something like this.
Push the space bar. Don't you owe your mom and Kevin an apology? And what do you want to say to them?
I'm sorry. Like, I can't stress how sorry I am, and I truly want to apologize, even though I've just never done it. I've never told them, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I just haven't. And this is my chance to do it in an impersonal way, because I don't know how to just get on the phone and say, Mom, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how. I don't know how to just pick up the phone and say, Kevin, I'm sorry. I just don't know. I really don't know how to do it. And it's so simple. Like, just pick up the phone. Just do it.
That's the second time I've seen him cry. The second time in, the 19 years I've been alive. It's the second time I've seen him cry. And, I actually got to see a visceral reaction.
Sometimes I feel like, was it a heartfelt apology? Was he truly, truly sorry for what he's done? Has he learned anything? Has he bettered himself? You've only been down since 2018, and what is he working toward? Just nothing, just sitting there.
This is a very happy picture right here. Oh yeah, 100%. It sucks that I wasn't able to develop that grandma-son relationship further. Just hate that, her life was ended the way that it was. It's kind of heartbreaking, One, that my brother was able to do this, but two, to just take such a joy away from our life. Like, even though my brother did what he did, he knows he's had wonderful and great memories with Grandma. I mean, it's just sad. It's really sad. He just creates his own agenda. He's a psychopath. I hate to say it, but he's just a psychopath. No remorse, stone cold killer. That's really all I got.
I don't consider myself psychopathic, but what is psychopathic at the end of the day?
I'll read you the definition. A person who often projects considerable charm upon introduction, which I feel like you've done to me.
Yes.
Contributing to their effectiveness in social engagements. A person who's a skilled conversationalist with the ability to engage in small talk with ease, often displaying a sharp wit that attracts others. A person who has an absence of conscience and lacks empathy.
I don't want to say I'm a psychopath, but that's kind of the definition of my personality. Like, you literally just described my personality to the T.
There's more. Signs typically emerging prior to adolescence, behaviors such as lying, theft, cheating, vandalism, substance abuse, and truancy.
Or you just described me all the way. Don't tell me that's the true definition of a psychopath.
It is.
That may be just how my brain works. I really, truly, at the end of the day, I may be cold-blooded.
My mom's life was worth more than just a few dollars. My mother is not here because Josh killed her. He shot her. I truly believe that Josh is a cold-blooded killer. He went there with the intentions to do harm. I feel like deep down, he's where he needs to be. He's just evil and petty. There's only so much you can do. Even when you have handed them the world, picked them up all the times that they have fallen, and they keep on and keep on. And there's only so much guilt for things that have happened or gone wrong. But at the end of the day, if you picked yourself up, you've got to move on from it. When I meditated and prayed about it, I could literally hear my mom's voice saying, "Do not live in the past and forgive."
When he revved the engine, that's when I ran up, hit her with the bat twice.
This became an enraged, brutal murder.
It broke my heart.
It began with a notebook small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, its cover cracked and stiff with age. The ink inside had faded to a ghostly gray, but the words still screamed from the pages. It was discovered by chance, buried beneath a loose floorboard in an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of Danville, Illinois. The date on the first entry, October 12th, 2001. The handwriting belonged to a young woman who had vanished that same year, 19-year-old Sarah Whitman. 2 decades earlier, she was just another small-town dreamer. Blonde hair dimples that could melt any heart and a voice that could quiet a room. Everyone in Danville knew her, the church choir girl who helped at the diner on weekends, who planned to leave for college in the fall, but on a chilly evening in October, she disappeared without a trace. Her car was found abandoned near the edge of Route 49 driver's door-ajar purse, inside keys still dangling in the ignition. There were no signs of struggle, just silence and a single shoe left in the gravel. The town changed that night. Streetlights that once felt safe began to flicker with suspicion. Parents kept their daughters close. Rumors spread faster than the cold wind that swept through the cornfields. Some said she ran away. Others whispered darker things, that someone she trusted lured her away, that she never made it past the cornfields alive. But without a body, without a confession, the case froze. The file was marked inactive, a cold case. For 24 years, Sarah's name remained a scar on the town's conscience. The case lingered in the background of every new generation, a ghost story parents told to warn their children about the dangers of the night. Her mother, Evelyn, never stopped searching. She kept Sarah's room untouched, a time capsule of hope. Bed neatly made, posters still pinned, perfume bottles collecting dust. Every Christmas, Evelyn placed a wrapped gift on the nightstand, a ritual of faith that her daughter would somehow return. In 2025, the farmhouse where the diary was found was being prepped for demolition. The property had belonged to the late Frank Dorsey, a retired mechanic known for his temper and reclusive habits. He died alone, no family, no visitors, no one to claim his belongings. Workers cleaning out the house stumbled upon the notebook hidden beneath a warped board in the bedroom. The diary, written in neat loops of teenage handwriting, began innocently talk of school, of friends, of wanting to escape Danville. But as the entries continued, the tone shifted. Fear bled into the ink. Sarah began mentioning a man, older, insistent, someone she couldn't name but couldn't escape. She called him M. At first, investigators assumed it was a teenage crush gone wrong, but the diary's final entries told a different story. Sarah wrote of someone following her, calling her late at night, leaving messages on her car windshield. The last words, scrawled in shaky handwriting: "He says I can't leave. He says he'll find me wherever I go. If something happens to me, it's him." The page ended abruptly. No signature, no date, just the chilling imprint of the pen pressed deep into the paper, as if the writer's final act was to force the truth to stay behind. Detective Laura Benson, who had just taken over the cold case division in Vermilion County, reopened Sarah Whitman's file. She was only a rookie officer when Sarah vanished, but she'd never forgotten the case that haunted her early career. Now, standing over the evidence board once again, she pinned up the newly found diary alongside Sarah's photograph. It was like looking at a ghost she'd failed to protect. The farmhouse was combed for DNA. Forensics pulled partial fingerprints from the diary cover, degraded but still usable. When run through the national database, the results came back with a match to Frank Dorsey, the property owner, but there was another faint trace. Unknown male DNA. It didn't match Dorsey nor anyone in the system. Someone else had touched that diary, someone who shouldn't have been there. Benson's team started piecing together the past. Dorsey had once owned an auto repair shop downtown, just a few blocks from the diner where Sarah worked. He was known for offering rides home to young women when their shifts ended late. Just being kind, people used to say, but kindness can wear a mask. Former employees recalled unsettling encounters, Dorsey's obsession with certain girls, his temper when rejected. One waitress, now in her 40s, remembered how he once showed up uninvited to her house with flowers, saying he missed their talks. She quit the next day. Benson ordered a full excavation of the farmhouse property. The search began at dawn, with cadaver dogs pacing through the tall weeds and brittle cornstalks that had long gone wild. For hours they found nothing but rusted metal and forgotten tools. Then, near an old storm cellar, one of the dogs stopped barking furiously. Beneath layers of dirt and rotted leaves, investigators unearthed a small silver locket engraved with the letter S, inside a faded photograph of a teenage girl smiling into the sunlight, Sarah Whitman. The discovery reignited the case. News spread fast. 2001. Cold case reopened, new evidence found in Danville. Cameras swarmed the site. Reporters shouted questions at Benson, but she offered no comment. Behind closed doors, she ordered forensic teams to dig deeper. Over the next 48 hours, they uncovered human remains. Partial skeletal fragments wrapped in remnants of fabric that matched the uniform of the diner where Sarah worked. The autopsy confirmed what everyone feared. After 24 years, Sarah Whitman had finally been found. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull. Time of death consistent with the night she vanished. The town mourned all over again, grief layered with shock, sorrow mixed with anger. Evelyn collapsed when she received the call, clutching the phone to her chest as if she could still feel her daughter's heartbeat through the wire. But the mystery didn't end there. Inside the same storm cellar where the remains were found, investigators discovered a locked metal box. Inside photographs, dozens of them, each showing young women from Danville over the years. Some identified others missing, and tucked between the photos, a folded letter written in the same handwriting as Sarah's diary. It wasn't a confession. It was a plea. The words read, "He made me write this. He's watching. He said no one will believe me." Forensic linguists analyzed the phrasing and concluded something extraordinary. Two handwriting styles overlapped, Sarah's and another attempting to imitate hers. The strokes grew erratic midway as though someone else took control of the pen. Benson stared at the letter for hours. If Dorsey was the one forcing her to write, why wasn't his DNA all over it? Why was there another male profile unaccounted for? She ordered the DNA sample cross-checked against every known associate of Dorsey Mechanics' customers' acquaintances. The match came from an unexpected source, Michael Caine, a man arrested in 2005 for assault, but released due to lack of evidence. He had worked part-time at Dorsey's garage during the early 2000s. His employment record coincided precisely with the months leading up to Sarah's disappearance. Benson tracked Caine down to a small town outside Peoria. He lived alone off the grid, working odd jobs, keeping to himself. When officers arrived, he didn't resist. Inside his trailer, they found a collection of old newspaper clippings all about missing women. And on the top shelf, a single photograph of Sarah Whitman, her eyes cut out with a razor blade. During interrogation, Caine denied everything. He claimed Dorsey was the one obsessed that he only helped around the garage. But when confronted with the DNA evidence, his silence said more than his words. Still, there was no direct proof linking him to the murder. The diary, the letter, the buried remains, they all pointed toward a collaboration, a twisted dance between predator and enabler. The deeper Benson dug, the more she realized the case was never about one monster. It was about one who acted and one who watched. Dorsey had been the visible threat, the man everyone whispered about. Caine was the shadow behind him, quiet, unnoticed, patient. Together, they built a secret that outlived them both. Late one night, as Benson reviewed the diary again, she noticed something no one had caught before: a smudge of ink forming a faint fingerprint at the bottom of the final page. When enhanced under infrared light, it revealed partial initials M.K. Sarah had tried to leave a name. Her final act was to identify her killer. The case file now reads closed, but in Danville, closure is a myth. The farmhouse has been demolished, yet locals still say they hear footsteps in the field at night, whispers carried by the wind, a girl's voice repeating the same words written decades ago. He says he'll find me wherever I go. When Michael Caine was led into the interrogation room, the fluorescent light hummed above him like a slow mechanical heartbeat. He looked older than his 45 years, hollow eyes, unshaven, the kind of face carved by guilt and sleepless nights. Detective Laura Benson sat across the table, her badge glinting in the harsh light, the diary lying open between them like a silent accuser. The room smelled of stale coffee and rusted fear. Caine's fingers twitched as he stared at the pages, his voice barely a whisper. When he finally spoke, "I didn't touch her," he said. It was frank. He did everything. But his tone lacked conviction, the words thin and trembling like a man rehearsing a lie he no longer believed. Benson didn't blink. She leaned forward, her voice steady, low, deliberate. "Then explain the fingerprint, Michael. Explain why your DNA is on her diary, the same diary buried under his floor. Silence, the kind that stretches, suffocates, gnaws at the edges of sanity. Outside, reporters were camped along the station's perimeter. Microphones pointed toward the entrance, their breaths fogging in the cold Illinois air. Headlines had already exploded across national outlets. Hidden diary solves 24-year cold case. Danville mechanic linked to 2001 murder. Cameras flashed as officers escorted Kane inside earlier that morning. Some shouted questions about other possible victims, others about the mother who had waited half her life for an answer. Inside, Evelyn Whitman sat in a quiet room down the hall, her trembling hands clutching the silver locket that once belonged to her daughter. She didn't want cameras, didn't want interviews. She wanted truth, raw, final, merciless truth. Benson had promised her that truth. But as she stared at Kane, she began to doubt if truth was even possible anymore. Every answer only bred more questions. Kane admitted to working late nights at Dorsey's garage the week Sarah disappeared. He claimed Dorsey asked him to help with a project repairing a storm cellar door. He said he never went inside, that he didn't know what Dorsey was hiding. But the inconsistencies bled through every word. He described the layout of the farmhouse in too much detail for a man who supposedly never entered. He knew about the loose board in the bedroom before investigators released that information. And then there was the way he said her name, Sarah. Not like a stranger, but like someone who had whispered it before. Benson played the tape from 2001, an old recording from a witness statement. A diner coworker had reported seeing Sarah arguing with a man in a pickup truck the night she disappeared. The witness remembered the man's jacket, a dark blue mechanic's coat with the name Mike stitched on the chest. Kane froze when she played it. His breath caught eyes darting toward the one-way mirror behind her. Coincidence, he said softly. There's a lot of Mikes. But the way his jaw clenched said otherwise. The district attorney wanted a confession. The media wanted a villain. The town wanted closure, but Benson wanted proof, the kind that survives headlines. For days she interrogated him, shifting between calm persuasion and controlled fury. She showed him photos from the box found in the cellar. He flinched. At some, looked away at others. When she placed Sarah's photograph in front of him, he reached out instinctively, fingertips brushing the image as if touching something long buried. She didn't scream. He muttered once. Not until the end. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Benson's pen stopped mid-stroke. For the first time, Kane looked alive, haunted, sweating his eyes, darting toward the ceiling as if seeing ghosts no one else could. News of that statement leaked within hours. By nightfall, every network in Illinois was running the same clip suspect in 2001 Danville cold case breaks down during interrogation. The small town became a spectacle. Satellite trucks lined Main Street reporters, filming outside the diner where Sarah once worked. Former classmates gave interviews. One said she used to drive the same route home. Another recalled Sarah mentioning a man who watched her too long. The town's old wounds split open again. Inside the precinct, Benson refused to sleep. She reviewed transcripts, phone records, maps. The more she traced timelines, the more she saw how invisible Sarah's killer had been. 24 years ago, there were no surveillance cameras, no cell phone pings, no social media breadcrumbs, just witnesses and memory fades fast when soaked in fear. Then came the break she didn't expect. A retired postal worker now living in Indiana contacted the department after seeing the story on television. He remembered delivering a package to Dorsey's garage in late October 2001 and seeing two men arguing behind the shop. One of them he swore was Michael Kane. The other was a teenage girl, crying, clutching something that looked like a notebook. When he tried to ask if she was okay, Kane told him to mind his damn business. The man never reported. It said he didn't want trouble. Now, 2 decades later, guilt had finally loosened his tongue. Benson sent a team to his home the next morning. His statement matched the diary's timeline perfectly. Sarah had written about meeting M at the garage that same week. Forensic re-examination of Kane's old truck found rusting in a salvage yard uncovered traces of blood beneath the carpet lining. DNA confirmed it, Sarah Whitman. The evidence was now undeniable. When confronted, Kane finally broke. The confession came not as an explosion, but as a slow collapse. His voice cracked, trembling like a man unspooling years of rot. He said Dorsey had become obsessed with Sarah, convinced she owed him after he gave her rides. Kane claimed Dorsey lured her to the garage under the pretext of fixing her car. Kane was there. He said because Dorsey wanted an extra pair of hands. Things escalated, words turned to shouting, and when Sarah tried to leave, Dorsey struck her. The sound, he said, wasn't human. Kane panicked, tried to stop him, but fear made him a coward. He helped Dorsey hide the body. They buried her behind the farmhouse, sealed the cellar, and swore never to speak again. But Dorsey grew paranoid. He made Kane return weeks later to move the diary, afraid it might connect them. That's when Kane touched it, left his print, left his secret. He said Dorsey threatened to kill him if he ever talked. When Dorsey died years later, Kane said he thought the nightmare had ended. But guilt doesn't die, it just waits. The confession was enough. The state charged Kane with second-degree murder and desecration of human remains. He was led from the station in handcuffs as cameras flashed and reporters shouted his name. The people of Danville lined the sidewalks, silent, watching the man who had stolen their innocence. Some cried. Others stared, unblinking. Evelyn wasn't there. She couldn't bear to see his face. Instead, she stood in Sarah's room that night, the locket still in her hand, the television muted. The screen showed Kane being escorted into a van. The Chiron read Justice after 24 years. But Justice felt hollow. She looked around the room that hadn't changed in 2 decades, the posters, the perfume, the unfinished scrapbook. It smelled of dust and old memories. She whispered to the empty air, "You can rest now, baby." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it, because rest requires peace, and peace had never been part of this story. Benson returned home past midnight, exhausted. She poured herself a drink, sat in silence, and stared at the diary lying on her table. The case was closed, the headlines written "The Killer Behind Bars." But the more she thought about Kane's confession, the less it fit. He had said Dorsey hit her once, that it was quick. But the autopsy showed multiple fractures, defensive wounds. There had been a struggle, a prolonged fight. Someone else might have been there, someone Kane never mentioned. Her instincts, the same ones that had pulled her through every cold case, told her something was still missing. She flipped through the diary again, page by page. Every entry ended with the same looping signature except one. The second-to-last entry, written the night before she vanished, ended abruptly. The ink trailed off mid-sentence. Underneath it, faintly, was a different indentation, as if another message had once been written and then torn out. Benson froze. She angled the page under lamplight. A ghost of handwriting pressed into the paper below read, "There's 2 of them." The sound of the refrigerator hummed in the silence. Outside, the streetlights flickered. Benson closed the diary slowly, the chill running down her spine like the whisper of something unfinished. The case was closed on paper, but not in truth. Not yet. Detective Laura Benson arrived at the precinct before sunrise, the world still wrapped in a thin blue fog. The streets of Danville were quiet again, but quiet didn't mean peace. It meant the town was holding its breath. The case was officially closed, yet something inside her refused to rest. The words pressed into the diary. "There's 2 of them" echoed like a ticking clock in her mind. She'd seen too many investigations sealed with tidy paperwork, only to find that the truth still bled underneath. She brewed another pot of coffee, spread the photos across her desk, and started reading the file from page 1. If there was another person involved, the evidence had to be hiding in plain sight. The forensics report was the first crack. DNA from the crime scene matched both Dorsey and Kane, that much was certain, but there was a third partial print recovered from the inside of the cellar door. It had been dismissed years earlier, too smudged for comparison. Benson ordered it re-examined with modern techniques. The lab technician, a young analyst named Rita Chavez, promised results within a week. Benson couldn't wait that long. She began retracing Sarah Whitman's final days. The diner where Sarah worked had long changed ownership, but the same booths still lined the walls, the same jukebox hummed in the corner. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Tara Gleason, remembered Sarah vividly. "Sweet girl," she said, wiping the counter, "always smiling even when the regulars got handsy." She lowered her voice. "There was a guy who used to pick her up sometimes. Not Frank, not that Kane fella either. Someone younger. Drove a red Chevy Impala." Benson noted it down, the kind of detail that once would have faded into rumor, now suddenly vital. Back at the records office, she dug through the old traffic citations. Only one red Impala had been registered in the county in 2001, owned by Ray Hollister, then 24, a part-time delivery driver. His name had never appeared in the case file. A ghost in the paperwork. Benson ran his record. 1 DUI in 2004. No violent crimes address unknown, but his last listed employment, Dorsey's garage. The connection snapped into place like a gun cocking. Hollister had worked there briefly according to payroll logs, hired in August 2001, fired in October. The same month, Sarah disappeared. The reason for dismissal wasn't written, just a single word: incident. Benson's pulse quickened. She printed his file and drove straight to the county archive, searching through the old police blotters. There it was, an altercation at a local bar, Dorsey and Hollister both cited for disorderly conduct. The bartender at the time had described it as a fight over a girl. By mid-afternoon, Benson was on the road toward Hoopeston, where Hollister's last known address led a rundown trailer park pressed against the railroad tracks. The air smelled of diesel and dust. A neighbor pointed her toward Lot 7, a sagging trailer with curtains drawn tight. No answer at first. Then, a voice, raspy, suspicious. "Who's asking?" She showed her badge. The door creaked open a few inches. A man stood inside, eyes bloodshot, a deep scar cutting through his cheek. "Ray Hollister," she said. "I'm here about Sarah Whitman." The name hit him like a slap. His knuckles whitened around the edge of the door. "That was years ago," he muttered. "I already talked to cops back then." "No, you didn't," Benson replied. "You were never interviewed." He hesitated, then opened the door wider. The trailer smelled of motor oil and cigarettes. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing. "I worked for Frank," he said. "Didn't last long. The guy was nuts." "Why'd he fire you?" He scratched his chin eyes, darting toward the floor. "He said I got too close to one of the girls from the diner." "Sarah. She'd come by for coffee sometimes, talk to Frank about her car. I was just around. That's all." Benson leaned forward. "You argued with him about her. Witness saw it." He laughed once, bitter. "Yeah, because he was jealous. He thought every guy was after her. He said she was a spoken for." "That's what he called it. I told him he was sick." Benson studied his hands, calloused, trembling slightly. "Where were you the night she disappeared?" He hesitated too long. "At home," he said finally. "Anyone who can confirm that?" "No." The silence thickened. Benson glanced around the trailer-cluttered shelves, empty bottles, a stack of newspapers yellowed with age. One headline peeked from beneath the pile. Kane confesses in 2001 cold case. She reached for it. Hollister's eyes followed her hand, then dropped to the floor. "You think I had something to do with that?" he whispered. "I think you know more than you said," Benson replied. When she left, he was standing in the doorway, watching her go, the wind lifting the edge of his curtain like a ghost waving goodbye. Back at the precinct, Chavez met her with the re-examined fingerprint results. The partial print from the cellar matched not to Kane, not to Dorsey, but to Ray Hollister. Benson's stomach tightened. The message in Sarah's diary, "There's two of them," had just turned literal. An arrest warrant was issued by dawn. Hollister was taken in without a fight. During questioning, he stayed silent until Benson laid out the evidence, the fingerprint, the employment records, the witness testimony. The bar fight. His composure cracked. "You don't understand," he said through gritted teeth. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "Then tell me how it happened," Benson said. He leaned back, eyes wet but defiant. Frank wanted her. He wouldn't stop talking about her, said she was different, said she'd leave and tell people. That night he called me, said she was coming over to get her car fixed, told me to stick around. I thought he needed help with the engine." His voice faltered. But when she got there, it wasn't about the car. She tried to run. He hit her. I froze. I told him to stop, but he told me it was too late. He made me carry her, made me dig. Said if I talked, I'd end up next to her. Why didn't you come forward after he died? He stared at the floor. Because I saw Mike Kane go back to that house. He was cleaning up burning things. I thought maybe he was covering for Frank. Maybe he was next. I didn't want to be number 2. Benson let the silence hang, the confession sinking in like a slow poison. 2 men. One who killed one, who buried one, who stayed quiet long enough for an innocent life to rot under dirt and time. The chain of guilt was complete. News broke the next morning. 2nd arrest in Illinois. Cold case, new suspect admits to cover-up. The town erupted again. Some called it vindication, others just exhaustion. For Evelyn Whitman, it was another wave of grief. She came to the station that afternoon clutching a photo of Sarah at age 19. I always felt there was more than one, she told Benson softly. You can't hide that much evil alone. The district attorney added an accessory to murder charge against Hollister. He pleaded guilty. In court, he spoke only once. I should have stopped him. The judge sentenced him to 20 years. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Evelyn weeping in the front row. After the verdict, Benson drove out to the field where Sarah had been found. The farmhouse was gone now, just a rectangle of flattened dirt and broken stone. The autumn wind carried the faint scent of rain and smoke. She knelt beside the spot where the cellar once stood. The earth was calm again, but she knew it would never truly rest. She pulled the diary from her coat, the same cracked cover, the same faded ink, and read the last full entry aloud under her breath. If something happens to me, it's him. She closed it gently. We found them, Sarah, she whispered. All of them. As she walked back toward her car, the sun broke through the clouds, lighting the empty field in a cold, golden hue. The case was over, but endings, she'd learned, are rarely the same as peace. In Danville, some scars never fade. They just learn to hide under new layers of soil. The courthouse in Vermilion County hadn't seen a crowd like this in years. By dawn, the steps were packed reporters with cameras, locals clutching coffee cups, faces pressed to the glass doors, waiting for a glimpse of the man who had helped bury Sarah Whitman. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed the air thick with whispers and the metallic scent of rain-soaked coats. The trial of Ray Hollister began on a cold Tuesday morning, 24 years and 3 months after Sarah's disappearance. Detective Laura Benson sat 2 rows behind the prosecution, her presence unannounced but unmistakable. She wasn't required to testify that day. Her work was already done, but she couldn't stay away. The courtroom felt like a wound she needed to watch close. Hollister entered in shackles, his orange jumpsuit stark against the polished wood. He didn't look defiant, just empty, the hollow eyes of a man who'd run out of lies. Evelyn Whitman sat in the front row, her hands folded around the same silver locket she'd carried since the day Sarah vanished. She didn't cry. She'd done all her crying years ago. Now her face was stone, the kind carved by grief so deep it becomes another kind of strength. The prosecutor assistant state's attorney Dana Klein opened with calm precision. For 24 years she said the truth about what happened to Sarah Whitman was buried under lies, fear, and silence. Today that silence ends. The jury listened motionless. Hollister's defense attorney countered with a narrative of manipulation, claiming his client had been coerced by the late Frank Dorsey, a man long dead, impossible to cross-examine. Mr. Hollister was young, the attorney argued. He was afraid. He didn't kill Sarah Whitman. He simply made a terrible mistake. Benson clenched her jaw. Terrible mistake. The phrase pulsed in her head, as if a 24-year silence could be reduced to an accident. She remembered the look on Evelyn's face when they found the remains, the sound of shovels breaking earth. There were no mistakes in that. Only choices. The prosecution presented the evidence methodically: DNA from the cellar door, the diary, the fingerprints, the confession. Photos of the excavation site were shown to the jury bones fabric soil. The courtroom fell into a silence so thick you could hear the hum of the projector. When Sarah's locket appeared on screen, Evelyn lowered her eyes. Then came the moment that no one expected. The prosecution played an audio recording taken during Hollister's interrogation. Benson's voice filled the room, calm, measured, unyielding. "Why didn't you stop him?" she asked. Hollister's voice broken replied, "Because I was afraid." The words echoed across the chamber, raw and final. The jurors stared straight ahead. When the defense took its turn, they tried to humanize him. Hollister's mother, frail and trembling, testified that her son wasn't the same after working for Dorsey. They brought in a psychologist to explain compliance under duress, painting him as a man trapped by fear and manipulation. But every argument fell apart under the weight of his own words. No theory could erase 24 years of silence. After 4 days, the jury deliberated for only 3 hours. The verdict was unanimous guilty on all counts. The judge, gray-haired and expressionless, delivered the sentence in a voice as cold as the marble floor. For your role in the abduction and concealment of Sarah Whitman, this court sentences you to 20 years in state prison. Hollister didn't speak. He only nodded once, as if acknowledging a fate that had long been waiting. Outside, the rain had stopped. Cameras flashed as the crowd erupted. Some cheered, some wept. Headlines were written before the ink on the verdict dried. Cold case justice. 2 decades later, answers at last. The town of Danville, for the first time in a generation, could breathe again. Or, at least pretend to. That evening, Benson sat in her car outside the courthouse long after everyone else had gone. The parking lot was empty, the asphalt still wet and glistening under the streetlights. She stared at the courthouse steps, hearing the echo of the verdict in her head. Guilty. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the quiet after a storm, the kind of quiet that hides the damage underneath. She drove to the diner, the same one where Sarah once worked. The booths were empty now, the neon sign flickering faintly against the rain-streaked window. Tara, the owner, was wiping down the counter when Benson walked in. "Long day?" she asked softly. Benson nodded. "We got him," she said. Tara smiled weakly. "Yeah, but you don't look like someone who did." Benson didn't answer. She ordered coffee she wouldn't drink and sat in the corner booth. From there, she could see the stretch of road where Sarah's car had been found 24 years ago. The highway lights flickered in the mist, just like they did in the crime scene photos. She wondered how many times Sarah had glanced at those same lights before everything went dark. Her phone buzzed a message from Rita Chavez at the lab. "FYI, we found partial DNA on the diary's inside spine. Likely contamination from storage, but running a check anyway." Benson stared at the message. Contamination maybe, or maybe not. She replied, "Keep me posted." The next morning, she visited Evelyn at her home. The old woman greeted her at the door, eyes puffy but calm. The living room still looked like a shrine, photos of Sarah on every wall, the air faintly scented with lavender and memory. "I wanted to thank you," Evelyn said, "for not giving up." Benson hesitated. "I wish it brought her back." Evelyn smiled faintly. "It brings peace. That's something." But Benson didn't feel peace. She noticed the details, the untouched bedroom, the stack of old newspaper clippings by the lamp, the unanswered letters Evelyn had written to detectives over the years. Obsession and grief looked the same when you lived with them long enough. As she left, Evelyn stopped her at the door. "You did what you could," she said. "Now you have to let it go." But Benson couldn't. Letting go wasn't in her nature. Back at the precinct, she pored through old files again, looking for something, anything that connected the diary's new DNA result. It came back 2 days later, inconclusive. Male profile degraded, not enough to match. The sample didn't belong to Kane or Hollister. Another ghost in the margins. Her supervisor told her to close the book. "The case is done, Laura. You got your conviction. Go home." She nodded, but didn't leave. Late that night, she sat alone in her office, the only light coming from the lamp above her desk. The diary lay open, the pages fragile and yellowing. She read the lines again and again as if they'd rearrange themselves into something new. "He says I can't leave. He says he'll find me wherever I go." The more she read, the more she felt that Sarah had known she wouldn't be believed. that every entry had been written not just as a record, but as a warning. Benson turned to the blank final page, the one after the unfinished sentence. The indentation was still there, faint grooves in the paper from a pen that once pressed down hard. She traced it with her fingertips, trying to feel the rhythm of the lost words. Behind her, the station clock ticked, 2:47 a.m. The file should have been sealed by now, archived, boxed away. But Benson printed one last photo, the aerial shot of Dorsey's property, the field, stretching behind the farmhouse. Something about it had always bothered her, a dark patch of soil near the tree line away from the dig site, never excavated. She enlarged it on her screen. The pattern looked too symmetrical, too deliberate. She marked the coordinates. The next morning, she'd go back. But for that night, she sat in silence, eyes locked on the photograph. Coffee gone cold, the weight of 2 decades pressing against her chest. Justice had been served, but the truth she knew had a way of hiding just beneath the surface, waiting for someone stubborn enough to keep digging. The morning air was sharp heavy with the smell of wet earth and harvested corn. Detective Laura Benson parked her car at the edge of the old Dorsey property, now just a stretch of brown soil bordered by skeletal trees. The farmhouse was gone, reduced to rubble and weeds, but the silence of the place still clung to the ground like residue. She stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the damp soil, and checked her GPS. The coordinates she'd marked the night before glowed faintly on the screen 30 yards northeast of the original dig site. That patch of ground had never been searched, never scanned. Back then, resources were thin, and everyone thought they'd found enough. But Benson had learned that enough was a dangerous word in this line of work. She zipped up her jacket, called the forensics unit on the radio. "I want a team out here. Ground radar soil samples. Quietly." She didn't want another media storm. The town was still reeling from the trial. Cameras had already turned Danville into a circus once. This time, she wanted silence, just the kind of silence that tells the truth. 2 hours later, the forensics van rolled in tires, crunching over gravel. Chavez stepped out first, her hair tied back, clipboard in hand. "What are we looking for exactly?" she asked. Benson pointed toward the dark patch near the tree line. "Something that doesn't fit," she said. The team unpacked the ground-penetrating radar, a compact unit on wheels, scanning waves beneath the surface. The screen flickered with color gradients as they pushed it across the field. Benson watched, arms crossed, every pulse on the monitor feeding the ache behind her eyes. Minutes passed. Nothing but layers of soil. Then, near the edge of the grove, the technician froze. A shape appeared, irregular, small, about 4 feet long, buried less than 2 feet deep. Not a full grave, more like a container. They marked the area, shovels slicing through damp earth. The smell came first faint, but distinct, the sour tang of decay long sealed from air. The tip of a shovel hit something metallic. A small box, rusted edges corroded with time. Benson knelt, brushing away the dirt with her hands. "Careful," she said softly. The box was pulled free, placed on a tarp. Chavez pried it open with a flat tool. Inside were several objects wrapped in plastic, photographs, cassette tapes, and at the bottom a folded piece of paper, edges brittle and stained. Benson put on gloves and unfolded it. The handwriting was familiar, the same looping script from Sarah Whitman's diary. The note was short, just 3 sentences. He said it would happen again. He said she was next. Please stop him before I disappear too. Benson felt her pulse spike. The date on the corner, October 14th, 2001, 2 days after Sarah's last confirmed sighting. "There's no way," Chavez murmured. She was already missing then. Benson didn't answer. Her eyes were on the word she. Who's she? The tapes were sent to the lab immediately. Old cassettes, the labels smudged, but legible numbers, not names. One read 3, 12 another 4, 09. Benson didn't wait for the report. That night in the evidence room, she loaded the first tape into a player. The recording hissed, distorted at first. Then a man's voice emerged, low, steady, unhurried. It wasn't Kane. It wasn't Dorsey. "Tell me your name," he said. Silence. Then faintly, a girl's voice, crying. "Sarah." The sound was brief seconds, then static. Benson stopped the tape, staring at the machine as if it might breathe. The other tapes followed the same pattern, numbered voices, faint cries, fragments of words. It wasn't random. Someone had cataloged them. But who? The forensic audio team worked overnight to clean the recordings. When Benson returned the next morning, Chavez met her in the lab. "You need to hear this," she said. She pressed play on one enhanced clip. Again, the man's voice calm, methodical. "It's not just you," he said. Others came before. Then a pause. "Do you understand, Sarah?" The room seemed to shrink. Chavez's voice broke the silence. He wasn't talking about her in isolation. He was documenting something, maybe more victims. Benson felt her chest tighten. "Or accomplices," she said. They cross-referenced missing persons reports from neighboring counties between 1998 and 2003, the years Dorsey's Garage operated. 5 women had disappeared within that time frame, all within 50 miles. None ever found. None connected. Until now. Benson mapped their cases on the wall, a constellation of loss circling around one name, Frank Dorsey. She drove to the coroner's office to retrieve the autopsy photos from Sarah's remains. It wasn't something she wanted to do, but something she had to. On the forensic images, a detail she hadn't noticed before caught her attention: a thin, circular bruise around the right wrist consistent with a restraint. When she checked old photos from the other missing women's cases too, showed the same mark in crime scene documentation, same placement, same depth. Dorsey's Garage repairs had been a cover. He was building something. Back at the station, Benson pinned everything to her board: the diary, the note, the tapes, the missing women. The story began to form a shape she didn't want to see. Dorsey hadn't acted alone, and the scale of what he'd done was larger than one girl one night. He was part of something patterned, maybe even organized. But she needed proof, something that could survive court, not just suspicion. She pulled Hollister's confession again, line by line. He said she wasn't the first, he had muttered once before the transcript cut to a new paragraph. Benson hadn't thought much of it then, assuming he meant emotional manipulation. Now it read like a literal admission. She requested a follow-up interview with Hollister at State Correctional. He sat across from her in the visitation room, hands cuffed, face pale. "I told you everything," he said. "No," Benson replied quietly. "You told me what you could live with. There's more." He shook his head. "It's over." "Then why did Sarah write she was next?" Who was she talking about? He looked at her for a long time, the silence stretching until it felt unbearable. Then he whispered, "You think Frank was the worst of it. You never met the man who came after." Benson leaned forward. "Name." Hollister's lips trembled. He called himself the Collector. The room fell silent except for the buzz of the fluorescent light. Hollister looked down. Frank did what he did for control. But that other man? He did it for memory. He kept things. Pieces. He shuddered. He said every story needed to end with proof. Benson left the prison that afternoon with the name circling her mind like a curse. The Collector. No last name, no record. She didn't even know if the man was real or a ghost built out of guilt, but she knew where to start the tapes. Someone had to have made them, cataloged them, stored them. Back at the lab, she had Chavez check the boxes again for fingerprints. None matched Dorsey Kane or Hollister, but there was a partial old, faint female. The lab dated it roughly to the early 2000s. Benson stared at the report. Female. Chavez nodded. Could be from the victim. Or someone else who touched the box later, Benson murmured. She stared out the window. The day had turned gray, the clouds thickening over Danville again. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of soil and rain. She thought of Sarah's words. He said she was next. Somewhere out there, someone else had vanished. Someone no one even realized was missing. She looked back at the wall, at the 5 faces now pinned beneath the cold fluorescent light. Every one of them young local trusting. Every one of them disappeared within reach of Dorsey's Garage. Every one of them erased until now. Benson exhaled slowly, the sound like a blade scraping stone. "We're not done," she said. For the first time in 24 years, the story of Sarah Whitman's murder wasn't closing. It was opening wider. Detective Laura Benson spent the next 72 hours buried in files. The term collector had become an obsession, a thread she couldn't let go of. She cross-checked every unsolved missing person report in central Illinois from 1998 to 2004, building a timeline that stretched across county lines. The pattern was unmistakable. Each woman disappeared within a 50-mile radius of Dorsey's garage. Each was between 18 and 25, and every case went cold after a few weeks, filed away and forgotten. She printed their photos, 5 faces, 5 ghosts, and pinned them beside Sarah Whitman's. The board filled with names, places, and dates, the pattern forming a ring around Danville like a noose. Benson called the Illinois State Police for access to archived case data. Lieutenant Carl Denton, a veteran investigator with 30 years on the job, met her in Springfield. He remembered one of the cases Angela Pike, 20 years old, vanished in 1999 after leaving a gas station outside Urbana. No sign of her car. No witnesses, he said, flipping through the yellowed file. We thought she ran off. Maybe we were wrong. Benson laid the diary note on the table. He said she was next. Sarah wrote that 2 years after Angela disappeared, she said, I think Dorsey knew her. Maybe both of them did. Denton frowned. Frank Dorsey? He was never on our radar. He is now. They reopened Pike's case officially under a joint task force. Benson requested access to Dorsey's financial records. The old mechanic had kept meticulous receipts, oil filters, spark plugs, engine belts, but one recurring purchase caught her eye. Heavy-duty audio tape ordered in bulk every few months between 1998 and 2002, more than a garage needed. The tapes, she muttered. He wasn't recording repairs. He was recording people. Back in Danville, Chavez continued analyzing the recovered cassettes. Out of the 12 labeled tapes, only 6 had been playable. 3 featured Sarah's voice. The others captured different women, none identified. The background hum matched the acoustics of a small enclosed space, likely a basement or storage room. Forensic sound mapping confirmed it wasn't recorded at the farmhouse, but somewhere with concrete walls. Not the same location, Chavez said. Different echo signature. Then there's another site, Benson said. The property registry listed a second address under Dorsey's name, an old auto parts storage facility 20 miles north closed since 2003. It sat behind a chain-link fence surrounded by overgrown weeds and rusting vehicles. Benson and her team secured a warrant. They entered at dawn. The air inside was thick with mold and oil fumes. Dust coated every surface. The building split into 2 sections, the main garage and a smaller room at the back locked with a corroded padlock. Benson cut it open. The smell hit instantly metallic stale, like old earth and gasoline. Inside were shelves lined with unmarked boxes. The first contained photographs, hundreds of them, Polaroids of women, mostly smiling, some clearly unaware they were being photographed. Gas station counters, parking lots, diner booths, surveillance shots collected and cataloged. On one shelf, a label read 2000 Pike. Another read 2001 Whitman. Benson's hands shook as she pulled out a third box marked 2002 Vale. That name hadn't appeared on any of her lists. Whose Vale? She whispered. The answer came from an old newspaper clipping folded inside the box. Local student missing after night shift. Emily Vale, 21. Her case had been filed in a different jurisdiction never cross-referenced. Dorsey had kept trophies. Each box represented a victim. Chavez photographed every item. The evidence was overwhelming, yet something was missing the man who called himself the collector. If Dorsey was dead and Kane and Hollister were behind bars, then who had continued the recordings? The later tapes, dated 2002 and 2003, had voices Dorsey couldn't have recorded alone, a second man asking the questions. He's the one we need, Benson said quietly. Back at headquarters, Benson and Denton cross-checked employment logs from Dorsey's garage during those years. Only one worker's file overlapped all 5 disappearances Marcus Reed hired in 1997 left abruptly in 2003. His last address was listed in Bloomington. No arrests, no criminal record. On paper, an ordinary man. But Benson had learned ordinary men make the best monsters. She and Denton drove out that night. Reed's house sat at the end of a rural road lights off a truck parked outside. They knocked. No answer. Through the window, Benson saw stacks of boxes and old equipment recording gear spools of tape. They returned with a search warrant at dawn. Inside, the air was dry and silent dust floating through thin sunbeams. Every wall was lined with shelving units filled with cassettes and labeled photographs. More tapes than Dorsey ever owned, hundreds, maybe thousands. On the desk sat a reel-to-reel recorder still plugged in. The tape inside was fresh. Benson pressed play. A voice crackled through the speakers. Male calm, deliberate. "You remember the rules," it said. "Names, dates, feelings. Tell me what you saw." Then another voice, female, trembling. "I saw him bury it. I saw the box." The tape clicked off. Benson froze. "That's not old," she said. The tape quality was too clean, too modern. It had been recorded recently, maybe within months. Reed was still active. The crime scene unit moved in, photographing everything. Fingerprints matched Dorsey's, confirming Reed had worked closely with him. But the newer boxes were dated well after Dorsey's death, evidence of a continuing operation. Some boxes were labeled with counties outside Illinois, Indiana, Missouri. Benson realized they weren't dealing with one man's obsession anymore. They were looking at a network. That night, she reviewed Reed's employment history. After leaving Dorsey's garage, he'd worked short-term mechanic jobs across 3 states, always rural areas, always near highways. Each location correlated with at least one missing person report. An FBI liaison joined the task force. Benson briefed them in a closed-door meeting. Dorsey was the origin. Reed expanded it. "We believe he was part of a coordinated pattern, someone documenting, collecting, maybe distributing recordings." The liaison asked distribution to who? Benson hesitated. "That's what we're going to find out." Search warrants expanded to Reed's bank accounts online, purchases, storage rentals. One hit came from a unit rented under a false name in Peoria. The unit was registered 6 months earlier, still active. They moved in quietly at dawn. Inside were more boxes labeled Archive. Among them, a small safe. When opened, it contained a single notebook, different handwriting this time, blocky, angular, clinical. The first line read, "They think it stopped with Frank." It didn't. The entries described sessions, subjects, and recordings. Each page logged a date, a location, and initials. No full names, just letters. The last entry was recent. Subject LB observed near courthouse. Continues pattern of interest. Benson felt her stomach drop. Her initials. Her. She handed the notebook to Denton, her hands steady, though her pulse hammered. "He's watching investigators," she said. "He's still out there." They issued a statewide BOLO for Marcus Reed. His truck was spotted later that evening on Route 51, heading south. State troopers initiated a stop. The vehicle fled. The pursuit ended 30 miles outside Decatur, where Reed crashed into a ditch. He was pulled from the wreck, dazed but alive. During questioning, he spoke little. When asked about the tapes, he smiled faintly. "You found the early ones," he said. "But you'll never find the rest." "Why record them?" Benson asked. "To remember," he replied. People forget what fear sounds like. Reed was charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and murder. But the tapes, those were only fragments. Hundreds remained unaccounted for, scattered across counties, hidden in storage units no one yet knew existed. As Reed was led out in handcuffs, the cameras returned to Danville. "Collector arrested in Illinois serial case," the headlines read. To the public, the story had an ending again, but Benson knew better. Behind every solved case was another door waiting to open. Back at her office, she stared at the evidence board one last time. Sarah Whitman's photograph at the center, surrounded by the others who'd vanished. Justice had caught one man, but not the darkness itself. That was still moving silent, patient. She closed the file, switched off the light, and stepped into the hallway. Outside, dawn was breaking over Danville again, pale, cold, indifferent. The interrogation room at the Illinois State Police headquarters was colder than usual that morning. Concrete walls, steel table, 2 chairs. No mirrors, no theatrics, just the hum of the overhead light and the quiet tick of the recorder. Marcus Reed sat chained at the wrists, a small cut on his forehead from the crash, his expression calm. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask for water. He just sat watching the door like he was waiting for someone else to arrive. Detective Laura Benson entered with Agent Paul Heller, from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. Heller had been flown in overnight, a specialist in long-term predatory offenders. He set down a folder, opened it slowly. "Marcus," he said, tone neutral. "You've been charged with multiple counts of abduction and homicide. We have your notebooks, the recordings, the boxes. But we're not here about what we know. We're here about what we don't." Reed tilted his head eyes flicking between them. "You already know enough," he said. His voice was soft, controlled, with an almost polite rhythm. Benson leaned forward to elbows on the table. "We know you recorded at least 6 women, possibly more. We know Dorsey started this. We need to know when you joined him and who else was involved." Reed smiled faintly, not smug, just weary. "You think he started it?" The room went silent. Heller waited a beat, then said, "You're saying there was someone before Dorsey?" Reed shrugged. "Frank was just good with his hands. The garage was a convenient place, but he wasn't the mind. He just liked to keep things." Benson studied him carefully. "And what about you?" "I like to remember," Reed said. "People forget too easily. They bury what they don't want to see. I collect what gets buried." Heller kept his voice steady. "Why the tapes?" Reed glanced toward the corner where the recorder sat. "Because sound doesn't lie. Pictures fade, paper burns, but sound stays. You can close your eyes and still hear fear." Benson resisted the urge to look away. "You said in your notebook there were others? Who are they?" Reed leaned back, chains clinking softly. "You ever wonder why the files on these girls never crossed counties? Why some disappearances never made it to the database? It's not because we hid them. It's because someone else didn't want them found." Heller interjected, "Who?" Reed looked straight at him. "People you wouldn't believe." Benson pressed names. He smiled again, slow and deliberate. "You think I'm going to hand them over? That's not how collectors work. Each keeps their own set." The silence stretched. Heller switched strategies. "Let's start simple. You worked for Dorsey until 2003. What happened after he died?" Reed's tone shifted the slightest tremor of nostalgia. Frank panicked before the end. He thought the tapes would get him caught. "Told me to destroy them. I told him no. That's when he started digging holes in that field. He wasn't burying just her. He was burying the work." "The work," Benson repeated. Reed nodded. "You call them crimes. I call them records." Heller turned a page in the folder, laying out photos of the tapes, the boxes, the victims. "How many records are there?" Reed didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Benson. "You're the one who keeps reading her diary, aren't you?" Benson froze. He shouldn't have known that. "You want to know how it ends?" he continued. "You're still looking for the last page." "Heller," cut in Marcus, "if you want to help yourself, now's the time." Reed smirked. "Help myself? You think this is about me?" He leaned forward slightly. "There's always another collector. When one stops, another takes the shelf." Benson met his gaze. "You're lying." Reed shook his head. "You found one field, one farmhouse, one garage. You think that's the whole map. You don't even have the first tape." She narrowed her eyes. "The first tape." Reed smiled thinly. "Frank didn't start recording in 1998. He started in 96. There's a reason you can't find those files." Benson exchanged a glance with Heller. The earliest victim she'd identified was from 1998. If Reed was telling the truth, there were at least 2 years of unknown activity. Heller shifted gears. "Where are those tapes, Marcus?" Reed looked up at the ceiling as if listening to something only he could hear. "You'll find them when you stop searching for the dead and start searching for the forgotten." It wasn't a riddle. It was a direction cryptic, but intentional. Benson closed the file. "Take him back to holding," she said. As the guards entered, Reed turned to her once more. "Detective," he said softly, "don't dig too deep. The ground remembers." He was escorted out without resistance. Outside the interrogation room, Benson leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Heller joined her, rubbing his temples. "He's not delusional," he said. "He's methodical. That notebook of his, the structure, the phrasing it's organized. He's not inventing names. There's something systematic behind all this." "Like a group," Benson said. "Maybe. Maybe an ideology, collectors, archivists, whatever they call themselves." They spent the next week tracing Reed's background. He'd grown up in northern Indiana, bounced between foster homes, no stable address until his 20s. His first job, an assistant mechanic in a garage outside Lafayette, had belonged to a man named Charles Trent, who died in 1997 under unexplained circumstances. When they searched Trent's property, they found remnants of a similar pattern: boxes, audio reels, notes about subjects. The earliest tapes matched Reed's handwriting. Dorsey hadn't started this. He'd inherited it. Benson drove to Lafayette herself. The house was long abandoned, condemned after a fire a decade ago. What remained was a hollow shell walls, blackened roof half collapsed. But in the basement, buried under ash, the evidence crew recovered a single melted box. Inside, miraculously preserved one cassette still intact. The label read simply #001. At the lab, Chavez restored what she could. The tape crackled, warped, but a voice emerged through the static. Not Dorsey's, not Reed's. Older, raspier. Name, the voice asked. A woman replied faintly, "Rita." Benson froze. Chavez looked up. "You don't think—" "Same first name," Benson said quietly. "Could be coincidence, or worse." They checked missing persons data. A Rita Hale, age 24, reported missing from Lafayette in 1996. Case never solved. Her photo matched the woman Benson had seen in one of the recovered Polaroids from Reed's collection. Back in Springfield, Heller summarized the findings in a task force briefing. "We're dealing with an intergenerational offender pattern apprenticeship-style transmission. One predator grooming another. Each generation continues the process. A network not in the digital sense, but human. A legacy of violence passed down like inheritance." Benson stayed behind after the meeting, staring at the board alone. The photographs of Sarah Angela, Emily, Rita, all connected now by one invisible thread. She thought of Reed's words. When one stops, another takes the shelf. It wasn't superstition. It was structure. She picked up the phone and called Chavez. "I want every box, every tape cataloged chronologically. I need a full chain of possession, who touched what when." Chavez hesitated. "Laura, you've been at this nonstop for weeks. You should rest. I'll rest when I know where it started." For the next 2 days, she barely left the precinct. She ate at her desk, slept an hour at a time. The sound of the tapes haunted the halls, fragments of voices, breaths, pleading silence. The evidence room felt like a tomb. On the third night, Heller walked in. "Reed's asking for you," he said. Benson frowned. "Why?" "He says he remembered something." They met again in the same cold room. Reed looked, pale eyes darker than before. "You shouldn't have gone to Lafayette," he said quietly. Benson didn't react. "You said there was a first tape. We found it." Reed nodded slowly. "Then you know it doesn't end there." "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "He taught us to keep the story alive. You close one case, another opens. You think you're solving something, but you're just becoming part of it." "Part of what?" Reed smiled faintly, his lips cracking. "The archive." He sat back, eyes distant, as if already somewhere else. The recording continued for 10 more minutes, but Reed said nothing else of substance. He just kept repeating the same phrase, "Every sound matters." When Benson left the room, she didn't feel triumph, just weight, the kind that doesn't lift even when the door closes. That night, she drove home past the dark fields of Danville. The soil looked the same as it always had, ordinary quiet. But she knew better now. Beneath that quiet, there were layers, years of secrets, each waiting for someone to dig them up again. And in her pocket, the sound of Sarah Whitman's voice from the tapes, faint, trembling, but alive in memory, followed her all the way home. The task force war room was quiet, except for the soft hum of servers and the rustle of paper. A map of the Midwest covered the wall, dotted with red pins stretching from Illinois into Indiana, Missouri, and Kentucky. Each pin marked a missing person file newly reopened since Marcus Reed's arrest. The scope of it looked less like coincidence and more like structure. Detective Laura Benson stood at the head of the table while Agent Heller briefed the group. "We've confirmed at least 16 disappearances connected by similar MO young women. Rural corridors, proximity to highway exits, and a recurring audio component." He pointed to a spreadsheet. 12 of the victims have known ties to auto repair businesses, freight yards, or scrap yards where Dorsey or Reed once worked. Benson added, "All the properties used for recording were leased under shell names with cash payments. That's coordination, not impulse." The FBI's digital forensics team had traced financial records back nearly a decade. Payments moved through outdated money orders passed between small-town pawn shops and defunct P.O. boxes, none of it electronic. Whoever kept the archive alive understood how to disappear without leaving a trail. By mid-morning, Benson and Heller were on the road to St. Louis to meet local detectives about one of the Missouri cases. A 2002 disappearance, Rachel Keller, aged 22, never linked to Dorsey. Her car had been found abandoned outside a rest stop near I-55. In the police storage lot, it sat under a tarp, dust thick as velvet. When the technician pulled it open, Benson immediately noticed a square outline beneath the carpet in the trunk. Inside was a cassette wrapped in plastic. The label, #217. She slipped on gloves, lifted it carefully. Same numbering system, she said. The ink matched Reed's handwriting. At the lab, the tape played clean. A woman's voice, Rachel's, confirmed by family, later answered routine questions in a calm tone. Then the sound of footsteps, a door closing, and silence. The male voice on the recording was identical to Reed's early tapes, but older, slower, like someone mimicking the rhythm. The timestamp on the cassette sleeve read 2004-04-10, STL West. That was a year after Reed supposedly stopped. Heller leaned over the waveform display, so either Reed kept working after Dorsey's death or someone copied his technique. Benson studied the tape box. The handwriting's close, but not exact. Pressure's lighter. Someone trained by him. Back in Illinois, Chavez finished cataloging all recovered audio. She found subtle fingerprints in the recordings, background noises, mechanical clicks, engine idling sounds that let her triangulate origin points. Spectral analysis placed at least 3 different recording environments: Dorsey's farmhouse, Reed's Peoria storage, and a third unknown site near the Illinois-Missouri border. Benson requested drone imaging of the area, an industrial strip of warehouses and trucking depots. One building, Unit 14B, had been leased in 2005 by a logistics company that dissolved within a year. The signature on the lease, M. Reed, witnessed by another name, C.L. Morrison. Benson cross-checked DMV and payroll databases. Morrison had no criminal record, but his address led to a small repair shop in Belleville still operating. The next morning, she and 2 agents drove there. The owner, Charles Morrison, mid-40s, heavy-set grease on his hands, greeted them politely. "We're looking into your former business partner," Marcus Reed Benson said. Morrison's smile faltered. "Haven't seen him in years. Heard about the crash. Records show you co-leased a warehouse with him in 2005. He wiped his palms on a rag. Storage for parts, that's all. Closed it when rent went up. Mind if we take a look?" He hesitated a fraction too long. It's been empty 20 years. By afternoon, a warrant was in place. The warehouse door groaned open on rusted hinges. Dust swirled in the beam of flashlights. Against one wall stood a long steel shelving unit identical to the ones from Reed's property, each shelf numbered with masking tape tags. Only 2 boxes remained, one empty, one sealed with duct tape. Inside the sealed box, photographs, an old Polaroid camera, and a small hard drive. Chavez imaged the drive later that night. It contained digitized audio, hundreds of WAV files labeled in the same numerical sequence as the tapes, each file less than a minute long. When she opened the first, Benson heard breathing faint static, then a woman whispering, "Please don't." Metadata placed the file creation date at 2018. That broke the timeline wide open. Reed had been in custody since 2025, Dorsey dead since 2011, yet the recordings were recent. Someone else had continued collecting. The task force expanded. Dozens of agents combed through truck stop CCTV archives, shipping manifests employee rosters. A pattern emerged. Many missing women had last been seen along freight corridors used by independent haulers, registered under fake companies, most connected through one insurance provider that shared a billing address in Peoria. The company had been dissolved, its owner listed as deceased. The paperwork signature Charles L. Morrison. A warrant for Morrison's arrest was issued at midnight. Local police executed it before dawn. He was cooperative, almost relieved. In the interview room, he sat slumped, hands folded. Benson asked, "When did you start working with Reed?" He sighed. "He came to me after Frank died. Said he had recordings that couldn't be lost. Told me to help him preserve them, digitize, label, store them safe." I thought it was weird hobby stuff, historical audio or something. Then, one night, he brought me a tape that wasn't like the rest. A girl crying. I told him to leave. Next day, he showed up with money and said if I didn't help, the tapes would keep coming to my door anyway. Heller pressed. So you kept archiving them? Morrison nodded. I stopped after the fire in 2011, or thought I did. Then, people started sending new files. Same numbering, same tone, anonymous transfers. I didn't want to know. People, Benson asked. He nodded slowly. Different names, different states, always collectors. It's like a chain. No leader, no organization, just men trading sounds. The room went silent. The statement was written, signed, logged, but the implication hung heavy. The archive wasn't a single offender, it was a contagion. Within weeks, the Bureau had identified similar caches in Tennessee, Iowa, and Nebraska. Each contained recordings cataloged in the same format, same sequence, different victims. The press couldn't know yet. Evidence, still fragile, jurisdictional lines blurred. Officially, the Reed investigation remained a state matter. Unofficially, it had become a federal nightmare. Benson worked 18-hour days cross-referencing files, her office walls filled with flowcharts of connections, Dorsey to Reed, to Morrison to unknowns. Every arrow led outward. The further it spread, the less sense it made. Late one night, she found a memo buried in the 1996 Lafayette file, a witness statement never entered into the database. It mentioned a white van parked near the victim's apartment logo, reading Midwest Archives, LLC. She searched corporate records. The company dissolved in 1998, but had listed multiple silent partners. One of them was Charles Trent, the same man who first employed Reed. It circled back again. The same network, changing names, shifting ownership, surviving decades. At 3 a.m., Benson printed the corporate tree. Every name on it was either deceased, missing, or incarcerated, except one, an accountant from Decatur named Richard Gaines. Still alive, still filing taxes. By dawn, she was in her car, heading south through fog and empty highway. Gaines lived alone in a tidy house on the edge of town, retired 73. When she knocked, he opened the door before she finished announcing herself. I wondered when someone would come, he said quietly. Inside the house was immaculate. On the mantel sat an old reel-to-reel player, polished, functional. Frank used to fix these for me, he said almost fondly. Benson kept her tone steady. You worked with Midwest Archives. He nodded. Back then, it was supposed to be preservation oral histories, truckers' interviews, that sort of thing. But some of the tapes weren't interviews. I tried to quit. They said I already knew too much. Who's they? He shook his head. Doesn't matter now. Most are gone. But you should know there are more tapes than you think. They copied everything before the fire. Everything. Where are the copies? Gaines pointed towards the basement door. Storage. Same shelves as always. Downstairs, the light flickered over rows of boxes, identical to those from the other sites. Some empty, some sealed. The dust told her they'd been untouched for years. She photographed each label, logged every number. When she came back up, Gaines was sitting at the table, hands folded. You'll never finish it, he said calmly. The archive's designed to outlive the people who make it. Benson didn't answer. She just took the boxes and left. By that evening, the Bureau had enough to open a multi-state investigation under the title Operation Archive. The press release was brief. No details, no numbers, just confirmation that new evidence has connected several historical missing person cases across state lines. Benson stood at the press conference perimeter, watching cameras flash. For the first time, she didn't step forward. She knew the work ahead, thousands of hours of tapes, hundreds of victims to identify, years of names to restore. As reporters shouted questions, she turned away, walking toward her car. The sky over Danville was clear. The fields silent again. She thought of Sarah Whitman, of the diary that had started everything. It had been a cry for help, but also a map, each word leading further down the chain of memory. Now that map stretched far beyond Illinois, and Detective Laura Benson understood what Marcus Reed had meant in his final interview. You think you're solving something. You're just becoming part of it. The Federal Command Center for Operation Archive was housed in a nondescript government building outside Springfield, its windows covered, its entrance unmarked. Inside, 20 investigators from state and federal agencies worked side by side under fluorescent lights that never dimmed. Maps, case numbers, and timelines covered the walls. Every corner of the Midwest was dotted with pin strings and color-coded notes. The scope of the operation had expanded far beyond Illinois, now encompassing 7 states and more than 3 decades of possible victims. Detective Laura Benson sat at the long central table, a laptop open in front of her, headphones resting around her neck. For weeks, she'd been listening to digitized recordings pulled from the Gaines basement. Thousands of files. Every clip had to be logged, transcribed, time-stamped, and compared with existing missing persons data. Each voice she identified meant another family to contact, another notification to deliver. The work was methodical, mechanical, but the cost was human. Agent Heller coordinated the multi-agency framework. The FBI handled data analysis, the state police handled field verification, and local departments were responsible for outreach. We've cataloged 264 individual recordings so far, Heller said at the morning briefing. 81 have been matched to known missing persons. The rest are still unidentified. Benson added, most were recorded between 1996 and 2018. The metadata shows that digitization didn't stop with Morrison or Reed. Someone continued uploading files under the tag archive sequence. We've traced 3 separate upload IPs, all routed through defunct trucking companies. Meaning, the director asked. Meaning the infrastructure still exists, Benson said. The people may be gone, but the system's alive. The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone understood the implication. Operation Archive wasn't just a historical case, it was ongoing. By noon, Benson was on a video call with the Bureau's Audio Forensics Division in Quantico. On the shared screen, a waveform scrolled by as a technician explained, we've isolated background signatures in the later recordings. Some contain radio chatter from highway patrol frequencies. That narrows location to specific interstate corridors. We're overlaying those signals with known patrol logs from the years in question. Which routes? Benson asked. I-70 and I-55, mostly through Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana. That gives us about 180 miles of active corridor. Truck routes, she said. Exactly. It fit the logistics pattern, transient offenders, mobile workspaces, low traceability. The audio fragments were like breadcrumbs along the highway. That evening, Benson joined a smaller working group focused on victim identification. Families of the missing were being contacted for DNA collection. She watched as analysts logged envelopes, cheek swabs forms. Every sample represented a life paused in uncertainty. When one identification matched, the atmosphere in the room shifted, not relief, not closure, but quiet gravity. By late September, the number of confirmed victims reached 94. Press leaks began circulating. Reporters caught wind of an interstate serial recording network. Official statements were drafted, reviewed, and reworded by legal. The Bureau refused to release numbers publicly. Too early, they said. Too unstable. Benson understood why. For every case solved, 3 new ones opened. The database kept expanding, feeding itself. She began to lose track of which counties she'd visited, which coroner's offices she'd stood in. The names blurred together. Pike Vale Keller Hale, unknown female, #112. Each had a file, a photograph, a moment frozen between disappearance and rediscovery. Sleep became an afterthought. She worked 16, sometimes 18 hours a day. The tapes played through her dreams, even when the headphones were off. The voices had a rhythm. Question, silence, plea. Static, over and over. A pattern etched into her memory. One afternoon, while reviewing the 2011 sequence, she noticed something that stopped her cold. In one file, buried among the static, a man's voice mentioned a date. June 15th, Springfield stop. The recording metadata listed June 15th, 2011. She checked the Bureau's logs. On that date, a state trooper had reported a traffic accident on Route 54 involving a white panel van. The driver fled on foot, never caught. The vehicle had been registered to a front company called Midwest Freight Systems, dissolved that same month. She reopened the file. A faint mechanical hum echoed behind the voice. She filtered it through software, a specific frequency used in certain refrigeration units. That's a reefer truck, she said quietly. Refrigerated trailers, cold enough to preserve evidence for years. She sent the data to Heller. Within 48 hours, local law enforcement located an abandoned yard outside Bloomington that once serviced those trailers. Beneath one of the storage bays, ground-penetrating radar showed disturbances in the soil. Excavation uncovered 6 sealed containers, each holding human remains preserved by chemical agents. DNA confirmed 4 of them as women from the archive list. The discovery changed everything. This wasn't just about recordings anymore, it was about physical evidence hidden deliberately along transport routes. Whoever continued the archive after Reed knew exactly how to erase and preserve at the same time. The Bureau authorized a full-scale excavation of similar freight yards across 3 states. Dozens of agencies mobilized. Federal crime scene tents rose across rural fields. News helicopters caught glimpses of white trailers, blue tarps, floodlights at night. For the first time, Operation Archive went public. At the press briefing, the Attorney General announced, "We are working to identify victims of a coordinated criminal enterprise operating across multiple jurisdictions. This investigation is ongoing. No mention of collectors' recordings or inheritance, just enterprise." That night, Benson watched the broadcast from her office. The words sounded clean, manageable. They didn't sound like what she'd seen. Heller entered quietly, dropping a folder on her desk. "You need to take a break," he said. "I'm fine. You haven't been home in a week. You've been listening to these voices for months. That's not fine." She looked up at him, exhaustion etched into her face. "If I stop listening, they stop existing." He sighed, sat across from her. "You can't carry all of them." She didn't respond. Her screen displayed the list of unidentified recordings, line after line, marked pending voice match. One caught her eye. A file labeled #298 June 2020. The timestamp made no sense. It was dated 2 years after Reed's arrest, long after the network supposedly ended. She double-checked the metadata. The creation tag wasn't forged. It came from an active device, a digital recorder model issued to law enforcement agencies. Her pulse quickened. She called Chavez, traced the serial number embedded in this file header. "I need to know where this recorder came from." Minutes later, Chavez called back. "It's government issued. Model DR5X, only used by police departments." "Which department?" A pause. "Danville PD?" Benson froze. "That's impossible. Those recorders are assigned by badge number." "Then you're not going to like this," Chavez said quietly. "The serial trace leads to your unit. It's your recorder." For a moment, Benson said nothing. The hum of the server room seemed louder, the lights harsher. "That's not possible," she whispered. "The file exists, Laura. Someone used your credentials. Either the system's compromised or someone's making new entries under your name." Benson opened the recording, heart pounding, static, then a faint click, the sound of a chair scraping concrete. A woman's voice, trembling, distorted, said 5 words. He said she was next. Then, silence. It was the same phrase from Sarah Whitman's diary, recorded nearly 20 years after her death. She closed the file, staring at the screen. Either someone inside the investigation was feeding the archive, or the archive had found its way inside the investigation. At 3:22 a.m., she drove back to the evidence facility where the original tapes were stored. The night guard nodded as she passed. The air inside was dry still. The shelves stretched down the corridor like rows of graves. She stopped at the section labeled Recovered Audio, 2020 sequence. One box sat out of place, slightly ajar, the seal broken. Inside, a small digital recorder rested on top of the files. Her recorder. No fingerprints, no dust. It had been placed there recently. She looked around the empty room. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. In the logbook, the last sign-out entry under that section bore her name, time-stamped at 2:07 a.m., barely an hour earlier. Her stomach turned. Someone had forged her entry while she was at the command center. Benson locked the evidence room, called Heller, and left a voicemail. "It's not over," she said. "The archive's still moving, and it knows where we are." Outside, the first light of dawn broke over the parking lot. The air smelled of rain. She stood by her car recorder in hand, watching the horizon. Operation Archive had become the biggest case of her career, but somewhere between the boxes, the tapes, and the graves, it had started to turn inward. The system she'd built to expose the network now carried its voice. And for the first time, Detective Laura Benson couldn't tell if she was chasing the archive or if it was chasing her. The audit began at dawn. By order of the assistant director, all access to the Operation Archive evidence room was suspended. The lights stayed off behind the locked steel door, while a team from Internal Affairs sealed the corridor with yellow tape and posted 2 armed guards. Inside every shelf box and hard drive would be inventoried again from zero. Detective Laura Benson arrived before sunrise, coffee in hand, face drawn from another sleepless night. The recorder that bore her serial number had been logged into the chain of custody as item hash R417. She'd already surrendered it to forensics, who confirmed it was indeed the same model assigned to her unit 3 years earlier. But the data tag embedded in the firmware told a stranger story. It had been powered on 6 times in the past month, 3 of those while she'd been verifiably logged in at the command center. Agent Heller met her in the corridor outside the sealed room. "They're running a checksum on the database," he said quietly. "If anyone tampered with the audit logs, it'll show up." Benson nodded. "If it doesn't, we have a bigger problem." 2 analysts from cyber forensics sat in a temporary workstation, nearby laptops, open network cables snaking across the floor. Their lead, a meticulous woman named Alana Sims, explained the process. Every evidence check-in and playback request creates a cryptographic hash. We're comparing current logs to historical mirrors on Quantico's secure server. If someone altered a timestamp or inserted a fake entry, there'll be a mismatch. "How long?" Benson asked. "Hours, maybe days." Benson paced the hallway, the hum of ventilation filling the silence. For years, she'd built her reputation on integrity, precise reports, clean paperwork, absolute chain of custody. Now her own badge number sat at the center of an investigation. At 0900, the Internal Affairs lieutenant arrived with 2 deputies. They collected statements from every task force member who'd accessed the evidence room in the past week. One by one, names were ticked off: technicians, analysts, the night guard, Chavez, even Heller himself. Everyone signed sworn declarations of access, times, and reasons. When Benson's turn came, the lieutenant read from a form. "Detective Benson, do you acknowledge signing the evidence log at 027 a.m. on May 14th? "I didn't sign it," she said evenly. "I was in the command center until after 3. Check security video." "We have. The footage from that time window is corrupted." Her stomach tightened. Corrupted how? Static for 42 seconds, then resumes. No visible tampering on the hardware. Heller frowned. "That's the exact gap covering the forged entry." The lieutenant nodded. "Which means whoever planted that recorder also wiped surveillance from inside." For the rest of the day, investigators combed digital access logs, badge swipe data, Wi-Fi pings. The system showed 3 devices connected to the evidence room router between 1:55 and 2:20 a.m. expected 1 rogue MAC address that spoofed a bureau-issued laptop. It pinged from an IP assigned to a workstation inside the command center. When Alana Sims cross-checked the hardware serial number, she turned to Benson slowly. "That laptop belongs to Chavez." The air went still. Benson shook her head. "Rita, wouldn't she's the reason we found half this evidence." "I'm not saying it's her," Sims replied. "I'm saying her machine was used." By late afternoon, Chavez was escorted into an interview room. She looked bewildered, but composed. "Someone cloned my login," she insisted. "I left my computer in analysis overnight. Anyone could have plugged in a drive." Internal Affairs pulled the workstation apart, imaging every sector of its drive. Within an hour, they found a hidden partition encrypted, renamed to mimic system cache files. Inside were 2 audio fragments not present in any official archive. Both bore the same numbering format as the collector's tapes, #301 and #302. Benson and Heller listened in a closed session. The first clip was brief male voice, unidentifiable whispering coordinates. The second contained only ambient noise, then a faint female voice saying, "Tell her to stop digging." Heller rubbed his forehead. These were uploaded last night. Same compression codec as the earlier recordings. Chavez swore she'd never seen them. "You think I'd risk my career for this?" Benson believed her. The tone in Chavez's voice wasn't guilt, it was fear. "Someone's using your access," Benson said. "You're not a suspect, you're a vector. That night, while the forensics servers ran integrity scans, Benson sat in her office reviewing the coordinate string from hash 301. It resolved to a rural field 12 miles outside Danville, close to where Sarah Whitman's remains had been found years earlier, but not the same location. She forwarded the coordinates to Heller. We check it quietly at dawn. At 05:30, they drove out with 2 local deputies and a forensic tech. Mist clung low over the fields. The GPS beeped as they reached the spot, a shallow depression near a line of dead trees. Ground radar detected a void, roughly 2 feet deep, rectangular metallic resonance. They dug carefully. Within minutes, the shovel hit steel. Inside, the soil was the small lockbox, newer than the others. No rust, no corrosion. When they pried it open, they found a single flash drive wrapped in plastic and a folded piece of paper. The handwriting on the note was printed block letters, "The archive never sleeps." Back at headquarters, the drive was imaged in a sterile offline system. It contained 1 video file time-stamped 2 nights prior. Surveillance footage grainy but clear of someone entering the evidence room at 027 a.m., wearing a bureau-issued jacket and baseball cap. The face never turned toward camera, but the build was slight shoulders narrow. Female Heller said. Could be Chavez, another agent muttered. Benson looked closer. Pause it. Zoom on the right wrist. The figure's sleeve lifted slightly, revealing a bracelet. Thin, silver chain with a small pendant. Chavez didn't wear jewelry on duty. Benson did. She felt the blood drain from her face. Heller glanced at her. Laura. It's not me, she said quietly. Then whoever planted that wants it to look like you. Internal Affairs sealed the video under restricted access. Benson submitted to fingerprint and DNA collection to eliminate cross-contamination. Every device she owned was confiscated for audit. She cooperated fully, but the implication was clear. She was now part of her own investigation. Over the next 48 hours, chain of custody records were reconstructed manually from backup logs. Alana Sims' checksum comparison revealed 3 mismatches, all related to entries under Benson's badge number over the past month. In each case, the time window coincided with short CCTV outages. This isn't sloppy, Sims said during briefing. It's surgical. Whoever's doing it understands our digital protocols and our physical schedule. Heller looked around the table, meaning an insider. The director nodded grimly. Until we isolate them, Benson is reassigned to administrative duty. She didn't argue. She just packed her files, walked out of the war room, and sat in the parking lot for a long time, engine off recorder still sealed in its evidence bag beside her. That evening, her phone vibrated with a restricted number text, "We told you to stop digging." She forwarded it to Heller, who traced it to a prepaid burner that pinged off a tower near the old freight yard excavation. Patrol units canvassed the area but found nothing except tire tracks leading toward the interstate. The next morning, forensics finished decrypting metadata from the hidden partition on Chavez's laptop. Embedded in the code was a string of initials repeated across several files, and while LB, Benson stared at the screen. Someone inside the task force was systematically mirroring her identity, using her badge, her hardware, her signature, her initials to seed new recordings. It was more than sabotage. It was mimicry. Heller closed the folder. If the archives inside it knows our system from top to bottom. Benson looked at the evidence room through the glass partition, the shelves, the sealed boxes, the red warning labels. All of it felt different now, like the crime had moved from the field into the building itself. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. Then we stopped treating it like evidence. We treat it like an infection. Internal Affairs agreed to let her assist in the technical analysis under supervision. For the next 40 hours, she worked alongside Sims to map every unauthorized access route through the network. What they found wasn't an external breach at all, but a maintenance script, an automated replication process created months earlier to back up case data to a redundant cloud archive. Someone had rewritten that script to duplicate the evidence folders to an off-site storage node registered under a corporate alias Midwest Archive, LLC. The same name that had surfaced in the 1990s files. When Benson traced the IP, the location resolved to a data center outside Peoria, leased through a third-party contractor still active. The operation had resurrected itself inside their own infrastructure. She turned to Heller. "We're not compromised by one person," she said. "We're compromised by the system we built to protect the case." He nodded slowly. Then we take it apart piece by piece. That night, as technicians prepared to isolate the servers, Benson walked through the darkened corridor past the sealed evidence room. The lock's red light blinked steadily like a pulse. She stopped listening. Somewhere deep inside, faint through the metal door, she thought she heard it again, the soft click of a recorder starting. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Then silence. The light kept blinking, and the investigation kept going. The shutdown order came through at 0600 hours. Every workstation tied to Operation Archive went dark at once. Monitor's black network ports sealed under tamper tags. The Bureau's Cyber Operations Division had assumed control of the servers. From that moment, every byte of data was evidence. Detective Laura Benson signed the Joint Task Force warrant beside Agent Heller. The document authorized the physical seizure of the off-site data center in Peoria, registered under the shell corporation Midwest Archive, LLC. It listed the charges as unlawful possession of federal evidence, unauthorized duplication of restricted data, and obstruction of an ongoing investigation. For the first time in months, they had a tangible objective, an address, a location, a point to strike. By 0830, a convoy of 6 vehicles left Springfield. 2 Bureau SUVs, 1 digital forensics van, 1 evidence transport truck, and 2 local units for perimeter control. Benson rode up front beside Heller, briefing the tactical team over radio. Primary objective is server containment. No network connections allowed once we breach. Cut power at main run portable drives only. We treat everything as live data until verified inert. The facility sat in an industrial park north of Peoria, a gray concrete block behind a chain-link fence topped with rusted barbed wire. The front signage identified it as Pinnacle Data Solutions, a legitimate hosting company that leased racks to small clients. To the employees arriving for morning shift, the presence of armed agents looked like a bomb scare. At 0912, the site manager produced keys and a layout map. Hall C contained the sublease for Midwest Archive, LLC, rack numbers 14, 22 back corner of the hall. Power independent from the rest of the grid installed 5 months earlier by a private contractor. That was their target. The tactical entry was quiet. No drawn weapons, no shouting, just the heavy rhythm of boots and the static of radio checks. Inside, the air was cold and dry, humming with the constant thrum of cooling fans. Rows of metal cabinets blinked with green LEDs, hundreds of servers stacked like safety deposit boxes. Technicians moved quickly, pulling fiber lines, tagging ports, grounding static straps. Main switch secure, one called out. Power isolation confirmed, another replied. The fans slowed to silence. Forensics tech Alana Sims set up an imaging station beside rack 14. We're cloning everything before transport, she said. Check some verification on site, full encryption once we roll. Each drive bay was removed, labeled sealed in anti-static evidence sleeves. The process was slow but precise. Label, log, verify. Benson monitored the chain of custody sheet signing after every 10th entry, her signature repeated in neat black ink down the column, an echo of order in a case built on chaos. Then one of the techs paused. Detective, you need to see this. Inside, rack 18. Behind the server blades was a small external drive taped to the chassis, its indicator light still blinking despite power cut. Independent battery, unregistered serial. Sims detached it carefully, connected it to an isolated forensic laptop. A single directory appeared, Mirror Live. Within it, time-stamped less than 24 hours earlier, were video files labeled with Internal Operation Archive case numbers. The system had been copying evidence in real time, every report, every recording, every surveillance feed from the Springfield Command Center. The data theft wasn't historical. It was ongoing. Sims looked up. Someone linked our live case management system directly to this node. It's been mirroring since February. Heller swore under his breath, meaning everything we've done, the interrogations, Benson's interviews, even the internal affairs tapes, they all got duplicated here. Benson felt the weight of it sink in. Pull the network hardware. I want that connection dead now. They followed the cable trail through the racks. It led to a fiber junction labeled Private Lease Clio Systems. The contractor's invoice file showed installation signed off by a subcontractor, Charles L. Morrison, the same man already in custody. His signature dated February 3rd, 25 months after his supposed cooperation. He was still working for them, Benson said quietly. The team imaged the final drive, sealed it, and prepared for transport. At 12:40, the convoy left the facility under escort evidence secured in the armored van. The moment the wheels turned, the Bureau's cyber ops team initiated an emergency containment order. Any remote systems pinging the Peoria IP block would be sandboxed for forensic analysis. By 1400, they were back at headquarters. The seized drives filled 2 rows of evidence lockers. Forensics began preliminary scans inside a secure, clean room. At 1710, Sims emerged with the first report. Every mirrored file ends with an outbound packet header encrypted recurring every 4 hours. Destination address resolves to a Tier 1 backbone relay in Kansas City. Someone was exfiltrating data beyond Peoria. The director ordered an immediate inter-district warrant. Within an hour, Kansas City field office confirmed the relay belonged to a content distribution provider hosting multiple clients under anonymized leases. One of those subleases registered to an entity called Continental Archive Incorporated. The corporate articles were identical in wording to the original Midwest Archive LLC charter cut and paste duplication updated only by date. The pattern was repeating again, another layer of shell. Benson attended the late-night coordination call between Springfield, Kansas City, and Quantico. Heller summarized the timeline. We isolate Peoria, they open Kansas City. We close Kansas City, they'll open somewhere else. This thing operates like distributed storage redundancy, built in. The Bureau's cyber chief proposed a different approach map the network instead of chasing it. We let the system keep talking, he said. We track outbound signals from every captured node, build a topology, then sever all links at once. It was risky. It meant allowing the archive to stay alive long enough to expose itself. The director turned to Benson. You've been on this from the start. Thoughts. She hesitated. If we cut it too soon, we lose visibility. But if we wait too long, we risk more data leaving. Give us 48 hours to build the map. Then we take it down completely. Approved. For the next 2 days, the command center operated under blackout conditions, no internet access, no external phones. The team worked from isolated terminals, each connected to a network simulator that mimicked normal activity. Every time the archive tried to replicate data tracer packets marked its path. By the second night, the digital map glowed across the screen, 32 active nodes spanning 11 states, most hosted through commercial data farms. Benson watched as each line pulsed red. Every node leads to a dead company, a dead man, or a stolen identity, Sims said, but one of them's live someone logged in from an administrative console 20 minutes ago. Where? Chicago. The signal came from a co-working space, downtown, an office rented under a false business name. Local field agents moved immediately, securing the building. Inside, they found a single workstation, still powered on, connected via VPN to the archive network. On the desk sat a coffee cup, still warm. Whoever had been there had left minutes before the team arrived. The forensic team cloned the system. The login credentials belonged to an alias R. Heller, Benson's partner. When the call came through, Heller was already in the conference room. He stared at the photo of the workstation, then at Benson. That's not me. Sims examined the credentials. It's not his account, it's a spoof. But whoever did this had full access to his authentication keys. Those keys are stored only on internal Bureau servers. Someone high in the chain. By dawn, the map was complete. 32 nodes, 1 backbone. The Bureau scheduled a coordinated digital takedown for 0900. Simultaneous sever of every connection, physical and virtual. Each field office received sealed instructions. Isolate power, remove drives, secure under federal custody. At 0901, the command center went silent as the operation began. Monitors displayed status windows turning from green to gray. Node 1, offline. Node 2, offline. Within minutes, 28 of the 32 were down. Then a line of text appeared on Benson's screen. Archive acknowledged. Mirror restored. The network respawned itself, rerouting through a fresh IP in Canada. Sims slammed her keyboard. It's rebuilding from backups. They pre-positioned mirrors outside U.S. jurisdiction. The director ordered cyber operations to contact Canadian RCMP liaison. while diplomatic channels activated the system, continued duplicating itself, hundreds of gigabytes flashing across the screen before finally freezing mid-transfer. Then line by line the nodes went dark. Connection terminated. Silence. The Bureau confirmed full shutdown at 09:47 a.m. For the first time since the case began, there were no active mirrors, no outbound packets, no signals. The archive was gone, at least for now. Heller exhaled. That's it. Benson didn't answer. On her screen, the final system log scrolled automatically to its last entry. User LB action export complete. Timestamp 09:46:58. Her initials. Sims checked the log hash. It's authentic. Someone used your credentials in the final second before shutdown. We don't know what was exported. Benson stared at the line of code until the cursor stopped blinking. The archive was offline, but a copy somewhere still lived. She closed the laptop. Then we keep watching. Outside, the late morning light broke through the clouds, the city humming as if nothing had changed. Inside, the Bureau drives cooled in sealed lockers, each holding fragments of a digital graveyard. The servers were quiet now. The hum was gone. But to the people who had built Operation Archive silence no longer meant safety. It only meant the system was waiting,